Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride and watched the stars. The ship floated in the cold darkness of space far from Earth. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. For 30 years he had served in the Terran Defense Force. He had seen many things, but nothing like what was coming. The communication officer, Hye Jin, looked up from her station. Her young face was pale with worry. "Admiral, we have an incoming message." "It's from them," Taemin nodded. He had been waiting for this moment. The alien ships had appeared at the edge of their solar system 3 days ago. 50 massive vessels, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. They came from the Galactic Empire of Vorthak, rulers of 1,000 worlds. "Put it on screen," Taemin said. The main display flickered to life. A figure appeared, tall and covered in dark armor. Its face was hidden behind a metal mask with glowing red eyes. This was Supreme Commander Vexithara of the Vorthak fleet. "Primitive humans." The alien spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "I am Supreme Commander Vexithara. You will surrender to the Galactic Empire within 72 hours. If you refuse, we will destroy your world and all who live on it. This is the way of the Empire. We have conquered 1,000 species. You will be no different," the message ended. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Captain So Young, the tactical officer, broke the quiet. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. "Admiral, I've been studying their formation. 50 dreadnoughts. Each one has enough firepower to crack a planet." Taemin walked to the tactical display. The alien ships showed as red dots on the screen, arranged in a perfect wall of destruction. "What about our fleet, So Young?" 12 ships, sir. The Soul's Pride and 11 escorts. On paper, we don't stand a chance," So Young paused. "But these aren't ordinary ships." From the engineering station, Dongwu looked up. He was a young man with oil-stained hands and bright eyes. "Admiral, the gravity drive is ready. All tests show green. We can do things those aliens have never seen before." Taemin smiled for the first time in days. "Good. What about the other ships?" Captain Jiho's voice came through the communication system from his ship, the Busan Runner. "All escorts report ready, Admiral. The crews know what's at stake." The Busan Runner was one of the smaller ships in the fleet. Jiho was known for his bold tactics and quick thinking. His ship might be small, but it was fast and deadly in the right hands. Lieutenant Commander Minna stepped forward from her station. She was the fleet's expert on alien cultures. For years she had studied the Vorthak Empire, learning their ways and weaknesses. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their communication patterns and ship formations. The Vorthak are predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and rigid tactics. They've conquered so many weak enemies that they've forgotten how to adapt." "Tell me more," Taemin said. "They always attack in the same pattern. A wall formation, moving forward slowly, using their big guns to destroy everything in front of them. They expect their enemies to run or hide. They don't know how to fight an enemy that moves differently." Taemin nodded. This was what he had hoped to hear. "And their command structure?" "Very rigid. Everything flows from the top down. If we can disrupt their command ships, the rest will struggle to adapt." Minna brought up a display showing the alien fleet. "See how they're arranged? The command ships are in the center, protected by layers of other vessels. They think they're safe there." Engineer Dongwu stood up from his station. "Admiral, you need to see what we've built. The gravity drive isn't just an engine. It's a weapon unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen." Taemin followed Dongwu to the engineering section of the ship. The corridors were narrow and filled with the smell of metal and electronics. They passed crew members at work, checking systems and preparing for battle. Everyone knew what was coming. The engineering section was the heart of the ship. Massive machines hummed with power. In the center stood the gravity drive, a sphere of strange metal that seemed to bend light around it. Dongwu placed his hand on a control panel. "Watch this," he said. The display showed a piece of space debris floating nearby. Dongwu touched a control and the debris suddenly moved, pulled by invisible forces. It twisted and spun, following paths that seemed to ignore the normal rules of physics. "We can control gravity itself," Dongwu explained. "We can make heavy things light, light things heavy. We can pull objects toward us or push them away. We can even bend space around the ship, making us appear in places we're not supposed to be." Taemin stared at the display. "How long have we had this technology?" "The basic research started 50 years ago, but we only perfected it in the last 5 years. We kept it secret, even from most of our own people. We wanted to be sure it worked before anyone knew about it." They returned to the bridge. Hyojin looked up as they entered. "Admiral, we're getting signals from Earth. They want to know what we plan to do." "What should I tell them?" Taemin asked. The bridge crew looked at him. These men and women had trained for years for this moment. They knew the odds. They knew what failure would mean for Earth and all of humanity. Captain So Young spoke first. "Tell them we're going to fight." "With 12 ships against 50? Hyojin asked. "These aren't ordinary ships," Dongwu said again. "And we're not ordinary people." Taemin sat in his command chair. He thought about Earth. Billions of people going about their lives not knowing that their fate hung in the balance. He thought about his wife and children safe in their home in Seoul. He thought about all the things that made life worth living. "Yijin, open a channel to Earth Command." "Channel open." "Sir?" "This is Admiral Taemin commanding the Terran Defense Fleet. We have received the alien ultimatum. We reject their terms. Earth will not surrender to the Galactic Empire or any other force. We will defend our world with everything we have. Earth will remain free." He closed the channel and looked around the bridge. "Now open a channel to the Vorthak fleet." The alien commander appeared on screen again, his red eyes glowing with confidence. "Alien commander," Taemin said in a calm voice, "we have received your ultimatum. Here is our response. Come and take it." The alien's mask tilted slightly as if puzzled by the response. "You dare defy the Empire? Your 12 small ships against our mighty fleet. You will be destroyed." "We'll see about that," Taemin replied and cut the connection. The bridge fell quiet again. In the distance, the alien fleet began to move. 50 massive ships heading toward Earth like a storm of metal and death. But on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, the crew prepared for battle with calm determination. They had secrets the aliens could not imagine. They had weapons that bent the very laws of physics. And they had something else, something that had driven humanity to reach for the stars in the first place. They refused to kneel. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The Vorthak fleet moved through space like a wall of death. 50 massive ships, each one the size of a city, advanced toward Earth. Their black hulls glowed with weapon ports, thousands of guns ready to rain destruction on anything in their path. Supreme Commander Vexthara stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the thick armor glass, he could see the small human ships in the distance. 12 tiny vessels against his mighty fleet. It would be over quickly. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "the human ships are moving into formation. They appear to be preparing for battle." Vexthara's mask glowed brighter as he laughed. "Foolish creatures. They think their toy ships can stand against the might of the Empire. Begin the attack. Show them the price of defying us." The Vorthak dreadnoughts opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced through space, each one capable of melting mountains. The beams streaked toward the human ships like spears of light. But something impossible happened. The human ships moved, not just forward or backward, but in ways that hurt the mind to watch. They twisted through space, following paths that seemed to ignore the normal rules of movement. The deadly beams passed harmlessly through empty space where the ships had been just moments before. "Captain." Jiho felt the Busan runner dance around him as the gravity drive pulled his ship through impossible maneuvers. He watched the alien energy beams flash past his viewport, close enough to light up his bridge with their glow. "All ships, this is Jiho," he called over the communication system. "The big ones are slow and clumsy. Use your speed. Stay between their firing solutions." The Busan runner dove toward the alien fleet, weaving between the massive energy beams like a bird flying through rain. Behind him, 10 other escort ships followed, each one moving in ways that no normal ship could manage. On the Soul's Pride, Admiral Taemin watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. The Vorthak ships fired again and again, but their weapons could not touch the dancing human vessels. "They're getting frustrated," Captain So Young observed. "Look at their formation. They're trying to create overlapping fields of fire, but they can't predict where we'll be." Lieutenant Commander Minna studied the alien movements from her station. Their tactics haven't changed in 1,000 years. They expect enemies to fly in straight lines, to fight like they do. They don't know how to handle ships that can ignore gravity. The Vorthak fleet tried to adjust. Some ships moved to surround the humans, others increased their rate of fire, but nothing worked. The human ships continued their impossible dance, staying just out of reach of the deadly energy beams. Vexithara's mask glowed angry red as he watched his weapons miss again and again. How are they moving like that? No ship can change direction so quickly without being torn apart. His science officer, a thin creature with 4 arms, worked frantically at his station. Commander, their ships are using some kind of gravity manipulation. They're bending space around themselves. Our weapons are firing at where they appear to be, not where they actually are. Then adjust our targeting systems. I'm trying, Commander, but their technology is unlike anything in our database. They seem to be controlling fundamental forces that we barely understand. Engineer Dongwu worked at his controls on the Soul's Pride, sweat beading on his forehead as he pushed the gravity drive to its limits. The ship responded to his commands like a living thing, sliding through space in ways that should have been impossible. Admiral, he called out, I'm ready to show them what this ship can really do. Taemin nodded. Do it! The Soul's Pride suddenly accelerated directly toward the center of the alien fleet. The massive dreadnoughts opened fire with everything they had, creating a wall of energy beams that no ship should be able to survive. But the Soul's Pride didn't fly through the beams. It bent space around itself, creating a tunnel through the deadly fire. The ship appeared to stretch and twist, existing in multiple places at once, before snapping back to normal space right in the middle of the alien formation. The Vorthak ships scrambled to turn their weapons inward, but they were too close to each other. Their massive size, once a source of strength, now worked against them. They couldn't fire without risking hitting their own vessels. Now, Taemin ordered. The Soul's Pride activated its main weapon. It wasn't a gun or a missile launcher. It was the gravity drive itself, turned into an instrument of war. Space twisted around the nearest Vorthak dreadnought. The crushing victory, the massive alien ship, 10 times the size of the Soul's Pride, suddenly found itself being pulled toward the much smaller human vessel. Its engines screamed as they tried to break free, but they were fighting against the very fabric of space itself. What's happening? Vexthara demanded. Why is the crushing victory moving toward them? The human ship is somehow controlling gravity, Commander. It's pulling our dreadnought toward it like a magnet pulling iron. The crew of the crushing victory fired their engines at full power, trying to escape, but gravity is not something that can be fought with normal engines. The massive ship continued to drift toward the much smaller human vessel. Captain So-Young watched the alien dreadnought approach on the display. Dongwu, can you control exactly where it goes? Like steering a boat, Dongwu replied with a grin. Watch this. The Soul's Pride began to move, still pulling the alien dreadnought with it. But now they moved toward another Vorthak ship, the Iron Conquest. The crew of the Iron Conquest watched in horror as their sister ship approached, completely out of control. Move away, Vexthara ordered. Get clear of the crushing victory. But the Iron Conquest was too big to move quickly. The two massive ships collided with a sound like thunder, metal tearing and atmosphere venting into space. Both ships were badly damaged, their weapons silent, their crews struggling to survive. The human escort ships pressed their attack. Captain Wu Jin in the Invisible Serpent used his ship's stealth systems to appear and disappear around the alien fleet. His ship would materialize behind a dreadnought, fire its weapons at the engines or weapons, then vanish before the aliens could respond. Commander Yuri led her fast attack ships in hit-and-run strikes against the alien formation. Her ships, the Storm of Soul and its companions, moved like lightning through the battle, striking at weak points and disappearing before the slow alien ships could turn to face them. The Vorthak fleet, which had seemed so powerful just minutes before, was falling apart. Ships collided with each other as they tried to avoid the gravity traps created by the human vessels. Their weapons, designed to destroy planets, couldn't hit the dancing human ships. Vexithara's bridge shook as another human ship appeared nearby, fired a precise shot at his ship's communications array, and vanished again. How many of them are there? He demanded. Still 12 ships, Commander, but they're appearing in dozens of locations. They must be using some kind of advanced holographic technology along with their gravity manipulation. Impossible. No species should have such advanced technology. We've ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. We know every scientific advancement in known space. His science officer's forearms trembled as he worked. Commander, I don't think these humans are from known space. Their technology is completely unlike anything in our databases. It's as if they're using different laws of physics. The battle continued, but it was clear that something had gone very wrong with the Vorthak's plans. Their mighty fleet, which had conquered 1,000 worlds, was being torn apart by 12 small ships that moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. On the bridge of the Soul's Pride, Admiral Taman watched the chaos with satisfaction. The aliens had expected an easy victory against primitive humans. Instead, they were learning that humanity had been preparing for this day for longer than they could imagine. Hyejin, open a channel to the alien fleet, Taman ordered. Channel open, sir. Attention, Vorthak fleet. This is Admiral Taman. You came here expecting to find weak prey. Instead, you found predators. You have one chance to withdraw from our system. Leave now and live to tell others about what you've seen here today. The channel closed. In the distance, the alien fleet struggled to regroup. Their perfect formation broken, their confidence shattered. They had come as conquerors and found themselves fighting for their very survival. The impossible had happened. 12 human ships had stopped the advance of 50 alien dreadnoughts. But this was only the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Supreme Commander Vexithara stared at the tactical display with growing horror. Half of his mighty fleet was damaged or destroyed. Ships that had conquered worlds were now drifting hulks in space, and the 12 human ships continued their deadly dance, striking where they pleased and vanishing like ghosts. Commander, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. We've lost contact with 17 ships. 8 more are severely damaged and requesting permission to withdraw. Vexithara's red eyes blazed behind his mask. No withdrawal. We are the Galactic Empire. We do not run from primitive aliens. But even as he spoke, another of his dreadnoughts, the Merciless Blade, suddenly began spinning out of control. The human ship called the Soul's Pride had somehow grabbed it with invisible forces and was using it as a weapon against its own. Fleet Captain Wu Jin smiled coldly as the invisible serpent materialized behind the alien command ship Dark Vengeance. His weapons fired with perfect precision, targeting the ship's communication arrays and sensor clusters. The massive alien vessel was blinded and silenced in seconds. Target eliminated, Wu Jin reported. Moving to next objective. The invisible serpent vanished from normal space, reappearing moments later near another alien ship. Wu Jin had perfected the art of stealth warfare. His ship could exist in multiple dimensions at once, striking from angles that shouldn't exist. On the bridge of the Soul's Pride, Dr. Yunsu watched the battle with calculating eyes. She was the head of Human Strategic Command, a small woman with gray hair and sharp intelligence. For 30 years, she had prepared for this moment. Admiral, she said to Taman, it's time to show them the truth. Taman nodded. Open a channel to all Vorthak ships. Hyejin worked at her station. Channel open to all surviving vessels, sir. Dr. Yunsu stepped forward, her voice calm and clear. Attention, Vorthak fleet. I am Dr. Yunsu of Human Strategic Command. You seem confused about how we're defeating you so easily. Allow me to explain. On the alien ships, crews stopped their desperate damage control to listen. Even Vexithara leaned forward to hear what the human would say. You think this is the first time we've met? Dr. Yunsu continued. You're wrong. We've been watching you for 50 years. Every diplomatic contact, every trade mission, every cultural exchange was an intelligence operation. We studied your ships, your tactics, your psychology. We know you better than you know yourselves. Commander Yuri's voice crackled over the communication system from her ship, the Storm of Soul. Remember that Vorthak trade delegation that visited Earth 20 years ago? They spent 2 weeks showing off their superior technology. We smiled and acted impressed while our engineers recorded everything. The cultural artifacts you shared with us, added Captain Jiho from the Busan Runner, contained detailed information about your military structure, your command protocols, your standard battle formations. You told us exactly how to defeat you. Vexithara's mask glowed brighter with rage. Impossible! Our security protocols would have prevented such intelligence gathering. Dr. Yunsu's voice carried a hint of amusement. Your security protocols assume your enemies think like you do. We don't. While you were busy showing off your power, we were learning your weaknesses. Lieutenant Commander Minna spoke from her station, her voice carrying across the communication channel. Vorthak psychology is remarkably predictable. You rely on fear and overwhelming force because it's worked for 3,000 years. But you've never faced an enemy that wasn't afraid of you. The battle continued around them as she spoke. Human ships danced between the alien weapons, their movements becoming more and more impossible to follow. The Busan Runner seemed to exist in 3 places at once, firing from multiple angles simultaneously. Your rigid command structure is another weakness, Minna continued. Everything flows from the top down. When we eliminate your command ships, your fleet becomes confused and disorganized. Watch. The invisible serpent appeared next to the Eternal Dominion, Vexithara's own flagship. But instead of attacking, Captain Wu Jin simply transmitted a signal. The massive alien ship's lights flickered and went dark. What did you do? Vexithara demanded, but his communication system was dead. Dr. Yunsu's voice continued. We've been inside your computer systems for years. Every software update, every navigation program, every tactical system has hidden code that we can activate when needed. Your own ships are working for us now. Across the alien fleet, dreadnoughts began turning their weapons on each other. Their crews fought desperately to regain control, but the ship's computers had been compromised long ago. The mighty Vorthak fleet was destroying itself from within. Engineer Dongwu watched the chaos from the Soul's Pride. Admiral, should I activate the Reality Anchor Protocol? Taemin considered for a moment. The Reality Anchor Protocol was their most secret weapon, something that pushed the boundaries of what was possible even for human technology. Do it, he ordered. Dongwu's hands danced over his controls. The gravity drive at the heart of the ship began to spin faster, its strange metal surface glowing with an inner light. Space around the Soul's Pride began to bend and twist in ways that hurt to look at. The remaining Vorthak ships found themselves trapped in bubbles of distorted space-time. Their engines fired at full power, but they weren't moving through normal space anymore. They were caught in loops of twisted reality, flying the same path over and over again. What's happening to my ships? Vexithara screamed, but no one could answer. The Eternal Dominion was caught in its own temporal loop, repeating the same 10 seconds of time endlessly. Captain So Young watched the tactical display with professional interest. 15 ships trapped in temporal loops, 8 ships disabled by their own weapons, 12 ships completely destroyed. That leaves 15 ships still operational. Not for long, Commander Yuri reported. Her fast attack ships were closing in on the remaining alien vessels, their weapons charging for the final strikes. But Dr. Yunsu held up her hand. Wait, let some of them escape. Taemin looked at her in surprise. Let them escape? They need to go back to their empire and tell them what happened here. They need to spread the story of how 12 human ships destroyed 50 Vorthak dreadnoughts. Fear travels faster than any warship. The remaining alien ships seemed to sense the change in the human tactics. They began to retreat, their massive engines pushing them away from the battle at maximum speed. But they were not running toward safety. They were running toward a new understanding of their place in the universe. On the bridge of the Soul's Pride, the crew watched the alien fleet flee. They had won a victory that should have been impossible. But more than that, they had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. Hye-jin looked up from her communication station. Admiral, we're getting signals from across the galaxy. Other species that the Vorthak have conquered. They want to know if the stories they're hearing are true. What stories? Taemin asked. That humanity defeated the Empire's finest fleet. That Earth is free. That the age of Vorthak domination might be ending. Dr. Yunsu smiled. Tell them the stories are true. And tell them that humanity offers protection to all who desire freedom. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Not a war of conquest, but a war of liberation. The galaxy had learned that the Vorthak Empire could be defeated. And they had learned the name of the species that had shown them how. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The question now was what they would do with the power they had revealed. In the distance, the surviving Vorthak ships jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying news of their defeat back to the Empire. They would tell of ships that danced through space like living things, of weapons that bent reality itself, of humans who had turned the Empire's own strength against it. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 days after the battle, the surviving Vorthak ships reached the Empire's home system. Supreme Commander Vexithara stood before the High Council of the Empire, his armor dented and his mask cracked. Behind him, holographic displays showed the destruction of his fleet. Explain this defeat, demanded High Counselor Theximora, a massive creature with 6 arms and eyes like black stones. How did 50 dreadnoughts fail to conquer one primitive world? Vexithara's voice was hollow with shock. They are not primitive, Counselor. The humans have technology beyond our understanding. They control gravity itself. They can bend space and time. They turned our own ships against us. The council chambers erupted in angry voices. For 3,000 years, the Vorthak Empire had been the supreme power in the galaxy. No species had ever successfully resisted their advance. Impossible, roared another counselor. No species could develop such technology without our knowledge. But even as they argued, reports flooded in from across the empire. Rebellions were starting on conquered worlds. Species that had been slaves for centuries were rising up, inspired by news of humanity's victory. In the Terran system, Admiral Taimin received these reports with growing concern. The Soul's Pride orbited Earth, undergoing repairs from the battle. The ship's hull showed scorch marks from alien weapons, but its crew was alive and victorious. Admiral, Captain So Young reported, we're detecting massive Vorthak fleet movements. It looks like they're gathering ships from across their empire. Dr. Yunsu studied the intelligence reports flowing in from their spy networks. They're mobilizing everything they have. At least 500 ships, maybe more. They're not going to make the same mistake twice. Engineer Dongwu looked up from his repair work on the gravity drive. 500 ships? Can we handle that many? We'll have to, Taimin replied. How long until they arrive? 2 weeks, maybe less, So Young answered. They're coming from multiple directions, trying to surround our system. The news spread quickly through the human fleet. 12 ships against 500. The odds were impossible, even for technology as advanced as theirs. Captain Wu Jin's voice came through the communication system from the invisible serpent. Admiral, what are our orders? Taimin thought for a moment. They could retreat, hide in the outer regions of space until they developed better weapons. But that would leave Earth defenseless, and it would show the galaxy that humans could be frightened. We fight, he said simply. Commander Yuri spoke from her ship, the Storm of Soul. With respect, Admiral, 500 ships is a lot more than 50. Even our technology has limits, does it? Dr. Yunsu asked quietly. All eyes turned to her. The small woman with gray hair stood at the center of the bridge, her expression calm despite the approaching doom. What do you mean? Taimin asked. We've been holding back, she replied. The gravity drives, the stealth systems, the reality anchors. Those are just the beginning. We have weapons that we've never tested in combat, technologies that we've kept secret even from ourselves. She walked to the main display, which showed a tactical view of the solar system. The Vorthak think they know what they're facing because they survived our first attack. They're wrong. They haven't seen humanity's true capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Minna leaned forward. What kind of capabilities? Dr. Yunsu smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. The kind that will make sure no empire ever threatens Earth again. Over the next week, strange things began happening throughout the solar system. Ships appeared and disappeared in flashes of light. Massive construction projects materialized around the outer planets. The space between Mars and Jupiter filled with structures that seemed to exist only partially in normal reality. The Vorthak Advance Fleet, 300 ships strong, entered the system expecting to find the same 12 human vessels they had faced before. Instead, they found something impossible. Earth was gone. Where is the planet? Demanded Fleet Commander Morthak, Bexthara's replacement. Our sensors show nothing but empty space. His science officer, a creature with multiple tentacles for arms, worked frantically at his instruments. Commander, the planet is still there. It's just not in normal space. It's been moved to a parallel dimension. That's impossible. So was everything else the humans showed us, sir. The human fleet appeared around the confused alien ships. But it was no longer 12 vessels. Hundreds of ships materialized from twisted space, each one moving with the impossible grace of gravity manipulation technology. Captain Jiho commanded a squadron of new ships, each one built in the week since the first battle. All units, this is Jiho. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every species that dreams of freedom. The battle began, but it was unlike anything the Vorthak had ever experienced. The human ships didn't just move through space, they moved through dimensions. They attacked from angles that didn't exist, fired weapons that ignored distance and time. Commander Yuri led her expanded fleet in a maneuver that folded space like paper. Her ships appeared simultaneously at dozens of locations, surrounding the alien fleet from all directions at once. Target their engines first. We want survivors to carry the message. The Vorthak ships opened fire with everything they had, but their weapons passed through empty space. The human vessels existed in multiple realities at the same time, solid when they attacked, ghost-like when under fire. Engineer Dongwu had outdone himself with the new ship designs. Each vessel was equipped with reality manipulation drives that could alter the basic laws of physics in localized areas. What had once been impossible was now routine. Admiral, Captain So Young reported from the Soul's Pride. The second Vorthak fleet is approaching from the outer system. 200 ships, including their new super dreadnoughts. Let them come, Taemin replied calmly. The super dreadnoughts were the Empire's ultimate weapons, each one capable of destroying entire solar systems. They had been built in secret over centuries, held in reserve for threats that could not be conquered by conventional means. But as they entered the solar system, they found that conventional rules no longer applied. Captain Wu Jin's stealth fleet appeared around them like sharks scenting blood in the water. These are the Empire's ultimate weapons? Wu Jin asked over the communication channel. They're certainly big enough. The Invisible Serpent and its sister ships began their work. But instead of attacking the super dreadnoughts directly, they did something far more devastating. They reached out with gravity manipulation fields and began to twist the massive ships like clay. The super dreadnoughts, each one the size of a small moon, found themselves stretched and compressed by forces beyond their ability to resist. Their hulls cracked, their weapons went silent. Their crews struggled just to survive the impossible stresses being applied to their ships. In desperation, the Vorthak fleet tried their ultimate tactic. They targeted Earth's sun, planning to destroy the entire system, rather than allow humanity to escape their vengeance. But Earth's sun was no longer where it was supposed to be either. Dr. Yunsu had moved the entire solar system into a pocket dimension, a safe space where the laws of physics were whatever humanity wanted them to be. The Vorthak weapons struck empty space, accomplishing nothing. Attention, Vorthak fleet, Dr. Yunsu's voice carried across space. You came here to finish what your first fleet started. But you've misunderstood the situation. Your first fleet wasn't defeated by our desperation. It was defeated by our restraint. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today you face humanity unleashed. Today you learn why we chose to hide in our small corner of space rather than conquer the galaxy. Today, you discover what happens when a peaceful species is pushed too far. The remaining Vorthak ships, fewer than 50 out of the 500 that had arrived, began to retreat. But retreat was no longer an option. Space itself had been altered around them, trapping them in a web of twisted reality. You will return to your empire, Dr. Yunsu continued, and you will deliver this message. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation begins now. Any species that threatens the peace will face the same fate as your fleets. Admiral Taemin watched the broken alien ships struggle in their dimensional traps. Release them, he ordered. Let them go home. The surviving Vorthak vessels fled into the darkness of space, carrying with them a story that would reshape the galaxy. They had come to destroy humanity and instead had witnessed the death of their empire's invincibility. Behind them, Earth returned to normal space, its sun shining peacefully on a world that had just redefined the balance of power in the galaxy. 6 months later, the galaxy was a different place. The news of humanity's victory had spread to every corner of known space. Carried by the surviving Vorthak ships and the spy networks of 100 different species, Captain Heejin, now serving as humanity's ambassador to the former Vorthak territories, stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Peaceful Dawn. Through the viewport, she could see the ruins of the Vorthak capital world. The great cities that had once housed the Empire's rulers were now empty, their populations scattered to distant worlds. Ambassador, her aide reported, representatives from the Zephyrian Republic are requesting a meeting. They want to join the Terran Protectorate. Heejin nodded. Schedule it for tomorrow, and remind them that membership in the Protectorate is voluntary. We don't force anyone to join us. It was a message she had repeated hundreds of times over the past months. Species after species had approached humanity, seeking protection from the chaos that followed the Empire's collapse. Some came out of fear, others out of hope, but all came voluntarily. Admiral Taemin remained on Earth, coordinating the new galactic order from the rebuilt headquarters of the Terran Defense Force. The Soul's Pride had been retired to a place of honor, its battle-scarred hull preserved as a monument to humanity's first galactic victory. Admiral, Dr. Yunsu reported as she entered his office, The Vorthak High Council has agreed to our terms. They're dissolving the Empire and establishing individual planetary governments. Taemin looked up from the reports covering his desk. Each one represented a world that had been freed from imperial rule, a species that could now determine its own future. What about the military commanders who refused to surrender? He asked. Captain Wu Jin is handling them, Dr. Yunsu replied with a slight smile. Far from Earth, in the outer regions of what had once been Vorthak space, the invisible serpent materialized next to a rebel fleet. These were the die-hard loyalists of the old empire, commanders who refused to accept that their 3,000-year reign was over. Attention, rebel fleet, Wu Jin transmitted. This is your final warning. Surrender and join the new galactic order or face the consequences. The rebel commander, a scarred veteran named Gex Valor, responded with defiance. Never, the Empire is eternal. We will fight until the last star dies. Very well, Wu Jin replied sadly. I hoped it wouldn't come to this. The invisible serpent didn't attack the rebel ships. Instead, it did something far more effective. Using advanced gravity manipulation, it gently moved the entire rebel fleet to a distant galaxy, so far from home that they would spend the rest of their lives trying to find their way back. Problem solved, Wu Jin reported. They can play empire among themselves in their new galaxy. No one else has to suffer for their delusions. Back on Earth, engineer Dongwu was working on humanity's newest project. The gravity drive technology that had won the war was now being used for peaceful purposes. Ships equipped with the drives could travel instantly between star systems, making trade and communication faster than ever before. The network is almost complete, he reported to Admiral Taemin. Any world in the Protectorate will be able to communicate with any other world instantly. We're connecting the galaxy in ways that were never possible under the Empire. Commander Yuri had taken command of the Protectorate Defense Fleet, a force designed not for conquest, but for protection. Her ships patrolled the space lanes, ensuring that trade flowed freely and that no world threatened its neighbors. Admiral, she reported from her new flagship, the Guardian Shield. We've intercepted another group of slavers attempting to raid the Centauri colonies. They've been relocated to a nice empty planet where they can think about their life choices. The Terran Protectorate had developed a unique approach to justice. Instead of destroying their enemies, they simply moved them to places where they couldn't harm anyone. Entire criminal organizations found themselves on distant worlds, forced to rebuild their lives without victims to exploit. Captain Jiho now commanded the Exploration Fleet, a group of ships dedicated to discovering new worlds and making peaceful contact with unknown species. His latest mission had taken him to the edge of known space, where his sensors had detected signs of advanced civilization. Admiral, he transmitted across the galactic communication network, you're not going to believe what we've found out here. There's an entire cluster of species that the Vorthak never knew existed. They've been hiding behind a barrier of distorted space, waiting for the Empire to fall. The discovery opened up new possibilities for the galaxy. Species that had hidden for millennia were now emerging, eager to join the new galactic community that humanity had created. Dr. Yunsu had become the Protectorate's chief strategist, but her role had changed dramatically. Instead of planning for war, she now planned for peace. Her latest project was the establishment of the Galactic Council, a democratic body where all species could have a voice in their shared future. The first session will be held on the neutral world of Harmony Station, she announced. Every member of the Protectorate will have equal representation, regardless of their size or technological level. It was a revolutionary concept. For the first time in galactic history, might would not make right. Small worlds would have the same voice as large ones. Primitive species the same rights as advanced ones. Lieutenant Commander Minna had become humanity's chief cultural ambassador, helping species understand each other and resolve conflicts peacefully. Her deep knowledge of alien psychology made her invaluable in preventing misunderstandings that could lead to war. The key, she explained to a group of new ambassadors, is to remember that every species sees the universe differently. What seems obvious to you might be incomprehensible to them. Patience and understanding can solve problems that weapons cannot. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy with the new order. On a dark world at the edge of known space, former Supreme Commander Vexthera met with other exiled Vorthak leaders. The humans think they've won, he said, his broken mask barely concealing his scarred face. They think their technology makes them invincible. But every empire falls eventually. We just have to wait for our chance. His companions nodded, plotting in the shadows, but their plans were futile. Unknown to them, humanity's spy networks monitored their every move, and their isolated world was surrounded by invisible sensors that would detect any attempt to leave. On Earth, Admiral Tamin stood in his garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. His wife and children were with him, safe in a world that no longer feared invasion from the stars. "Do you think it will last?" his wife asked, taking his hand. "The peace? The protectorate?" Tamin considered the question. "Nothing lasts forever, but we've given the galaxy something it never had before, a choice. Species can choose cooperation over conquest, understanding over fear. That's worth fighting to protect." Above them, the stars twinkled peacefully in the evening sky. Each one represented worlds that were now free to determine their own destiny, protected by humanity's invisible guardians. The age of empires built on fear and conquest was over. The age of cooperation, guaranteed by humanity's unassailable power, had begun. And for the first time in galactic history, the future looked bright for all species, not just the strongest. In the depths of space, Captain So Young commanded the monitoring station that watched over the entire galaxy. Her sensors could detect any threat before it fully formed. Her weapons could strike across impossible distances without warning. "All quiet in the galaxy," she reported to Admiral Tamin. "The peace holds." It was a peace enforced not by fear, but by the certain knowledge that humanity would protect any species that chose cooperation over aggression. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in its history. Those with the greatest power had the greatest responsibility to use it wisely. And humanity, having chosen restraint over conquest for so many years, had proven itself worthy of that responsibility. The stars shone down on a galaxy at peace, watched over by a species that had learned that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect. The Galactic Empire had stared in horror as it realized it couldn't stand against humanity's warships. But in the end, humanity had given the galaxy something far more valuable than conquest: hope for a better future for all.